You talked about Tuckman's model. Did I say that right?
Yes.
All right. So you said it. I don't
Yes.
know what that is. So break it down for the people. What is Tuckman's model?
Tuckman's model is a dynamic process that can start over. It's basically where every team comes together and they have like the norming, the forming, the storming, and the performing phases. So the norming is when the whole team is like coming together and it's kind of like, I like to call it like a piss competition. That's what I say to my students, like piss competition. Like who's going to be the outstanding performer, who's going to be more talkative, who's going to be boisterous, who's going to be like that silent assassin. So everyone's kind of sizing people up. Then you have the forming. This is where like roles start to become more clear. You start to see like athletes really stick out or colleagues stick out in certain areas, and role clarity becomes clear. Then you have the storming. This is where like conflict happens. This is where you're trying to build those relationships and you're building them between coaches as well as players and trying to figure out the team cohesion and dynamics during that point. And there's a lot of storming. I think about like Coach Carter is a good example of this, like all the
Yeah.
storming that happened in that movie. I show it in my class and it's just like you can really start to see like the breakdown in the team through this model. But also the last phase is the performing phase where everything starts to finally gel together. Like you have your players, you have your understanding, you've already went through the storming phase, now the team is performing well. And but it's a dynamic process, so this means like at any point in the game it could start all over. And that's what we were talking about earlier, why good fit is so important, because
Right.
if one person comes in they can throw that whole cycle off and then it starts from the beginning.
That was beautifully explained there.
Thank you.
That was great. I felt like one of your students.
Thank you.
No, that was really cool. So yeah, Coach Carter, great movie. That's
Yes.
one of that's up there as far as
Mhm.
like my favorite movies. Really quick, talk
Yeah.
about how roles within a team, how important are they?
Very important. So you want to make sure that like because a lot of times we talk about like star athletes and we forget that there are other athletes on the team. So I think like role clarity becomes important whether you're a star athlete or a star colleague or star whatever you're doing in your role. You want your other colleagues and players to still feel like they have a role. So like you never want that star person to seem like the star person to everyone else because it's just going to make the whole
Or like
dynamic,
they're the entire team.
or they're the entire
Right. Okay.
team,
Yeah.
because then that creates resentment, that creates conflict in relationships
Right.
between the coaches as well as the players, between the colleagues and the bosses. So you want to make sure that even if you have a water boy as a colleague, that they feel like they're the best water boy ever, right? Or they're the
Right.
best, like you want to still give, and one of the ways that you can do that is by creating like meaningful moments throughout that relationship. Like
Okay.
you want to look for opportunities to, I call it like soft compliment them. You, and if it feels forced, the rule is I always say like it probably is forced. Like you want to make sure, like if I came in today and I'm like, Josh, your hair is so amazing, like, and you haven't gotten a haircut in 3 weeks, you're gonna be looking at
It's
me
like I'm
like,
looking woolly or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're gonna
that's
be like, you're
crazy.
capping, right? But
Right.
if I say something like, we come into practice and I'm like, man, I saw you like lift your teammate's head up. I really like the way you showed leadership.
Right. Okay.
That's like
Mm.
a way to build a positive relationship with someone. Or say they're the water boy, like, I really appreciate you going to get such and such water. He really needed it. Like you want to do things that are actually genuine to help bring together the cohesion of a team and bring together role clarity for each person so they understand that they're seen in those moments and they don't feel like they're overlooked.
No, that's really good because every team that I've been on, and I've been on a lot of teams that have won championships,
Mhm.
and the difference between those teams and the teams that weren't as good or didn't win the championship was the teams that won were the ones where everybody on the team from the greatest to the least understood their role.
Yep.
And I've been on championship teams where I was like the guy, and I've
Mhm.
been on teams where I wasn't, playing every day.
Yep.
Especially the time we went to the World Series in college, I wasn't playing every day. I was basically a bench player,
Yep.
but I still understood my role, and I was like, I mean, I got to be here. There's no sense in, you know, being sorry for myself or taking pity for myself because I wasn't performing at a good enough level to be on the field. It's like, no, let me support the guys that are, because these are my brothers,
Yes,
right?
I love that attitude because a lot of players don't have that. Like a
Mm,
lot of
yeah,
people don't have that. And the flip side of that is it's not all the athlete's responsibility either to do that, show up with that. It's also the coach's responsibility to reinforce, I
yeah,
saw you show up today. You didn't
hmm
have to show up with that attitude. You didn't have to show up to support your
hmm
teammates in that way. But you did. And I saw you encourage this person, or I saw you reach out afterwards, or I heard about that text that you sent to him after the game. Like it's the coach's job to do those things
right.
and bring together that for the teammates.
And that's something my coach actually he did. He was like, "Yeah, I know you're not playing because the year before I had played a lot, my freshman
Mm-hmm.
year, and then my sophomore year didn't play as much." And so he did mention like, "Hey, like you're doing a great job in the role that you have on this team. Like I want you to know it's not basically being overlooked. Like you're doing a great job." Um, and so I was just like, well, thanks. At least it's not going unnoticed.
Yes.
But yeah, it does take a lot of maturity to get to the point to where you're like, man, because everybody wants to be playing at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't join a team or participate on a team to not actually participate in the sport.
Yep.
You want to be an active participant in whatever the game is or whatever the the team is doing. And so knowing that, talk about like, from we talked about kind of like more of the coach's responsibility. Talk about the responsibility that you have to take on as a player if you are in a lesser role. Like, what do you have to do? So, and this could be, we can broaden this to, your job. Like, you just get hired, right? And you're at the bottom of the totem pole. That's hard for some people to accept, especially if you've been playing sports all your life and you've
Yep.
always been the guy or you've always been the girl and you've always been team captain, and now you're just like
On the
bottom
sidelines.
you're
Yeah.
bottom tier at this company.
Yeah.
And of course, like, you're gonna be competitive and you're gonna try to work your way up, but
Yeah.
that could be a hard thing to accept at first. So talk about the responsibility that you have to take on
Yeah.
as a person if you are in that lesser role.
That's a great question. So I would say like I like to differentiate like task cohesion from social cohesion. So like task cohesion is being on a team and having a clear defined role and being able to execute that role. Like say you just start a new corporate job and you're not sure what to do, you're just in training week 1, like you're not going to excel at task cohesion. You can just take that right off the table because
Right.
you're not going to know what you're doing. But like if you can focus on the social cohesion, if you can focus on building positive relationships, if you can focus on like being the donut girl in the morning or like coming in asking people like, hey, I'm going to get a coffee, do you want one? Oh,
Mhm.
how's your day going? Can you show me a little bit about what you do? If you can excel in those things, like I always say that goes 10 times further than the task cohesion because people always remember more than anything like how you treated them. They're not necessarily looking at like some bosses are, they're micromanagers, but most of the time they're not looking at this person do every single thing on their to-do list today, right? At their
Right.
job. They're looking at, well, did they have a positive attitude when they showed up? Were they timely? And then if you start doing extra things like just checking in with people and conversing with people when you don't have to during your lunch break instead of going to your car, sitting in with the group and or at least sitting in the main area where people can see you and you're visible, then it still looks like you're showing up to offer that social cohesion, even if you can't offer that task cohesion.
No, that's very good. That's very good. And one thing that my high school coach used to say was like, you can't control, everything that
Mm-hmm.
happens in your sport or in life. It broadens out. But there's two things that you can always control in the game of baseball. This also extends to life as well. Is you can always control your attitude and you can always control your effort.
Yep.
So you can always control, your outlook on things, like how your attitude is towards a certain situation, even if things aren't going your way, even if you face adversity. And then you can always control your effort. You can choose how you respond to that adversity. Do you just, lay down and feel sorry for yourself, or do you say, hey, yeah, I messed up,
Yep.
but next time I'm gonna get the next one. That's a
Yes.
big thing in baseball. It's like, all right, on to the next one, get the next one. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay if you just made an error. It's okay if you just struck out,
Yeah.
right? That's why it's a team sport. You got a brother behind you that can pick you up for now,
Yep.
but then when your opportunity comes back around, you need to be in the mental space,
Yep.
right? Um, and have a more positive outlook so that you can get you have a better chance of having a positive result. Because if
Yeah.
you're still feeling sorry for yourself when your time comes back around
Whew.
on that next AB, then
You're gonna miss it.
your chances of success are going to go down.
Yep.
And so
I would agree, and I think I'm thinking about like our pickleball game because Josh beat us in pickleball the other day, and
yeah,
I'm
2
livid.
out of 3, baby.
I cannot believe.
Don't mess with us.
I literally can't believe it. But we won the first one, Jake and I. We crushed it.
Yeah, it was a warm-up game.
I don't want to hear it. So, granted, I'm still mad, right? But like that goes back to what you were saying about having a positive attitude. Because in those moments when I was losing that pickleball game, I was livid. Okay, like I was not happy. I had a bad attitude. But one thing I tried to pivot and just started like I call it positive self-talk. We talk about this a lot in class, but I think it stems back to like just so much that we need to talk about in our community in terms of like self-esteem, confidence, and how we speak to ourselves. That really matters, especially in sport and in your professional life as well. But like during pickleball, I was like, man, I messed up. And I had to immediately switch myself to thinking like, all right, Gab, let's get back on the next one. You got this.
Right.
You know, like positive self-talk is so hard to do in the moment. But once you can just like pivot your mindset to I'm going to crush the next one. I've got this next set, or I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to focus on my serve this time. Like
Yeah.
switching that in the moment can help you to have a better outlook.
Exactly. Because to your point too. So our first game we lost, and we weren't playing well like at all, and it took us. So for those who don't know, Gabrielle, myself, my brother Jacob, and then my girlfriend Kenya, who is also part of the Quality Life, all went and played pickleball yesterday. So it was Team Pro Mac, which is what Kenya and I called ourselves, versus those guys. I'm just playing.
It was Jake and I.
Versus Jacob and Gabrielle. And so the first game, they were winning, and they were all hype.
We were hype.
And then so this is how this happened. So they get down to match point, right? So they get down to match point. I gotta go big screen for this. They get down to match point, and then they're like, "Oh, y'all want to put some stakes on this game?"
We sure
did. It's like y'all are winning 10 to like 6 or something. Like all y'all got to get is 1 point. And you want to put stakes on this game? I was like, no, let's do the next game. And so they were like, okay. So they win that game. Okay, warm up. Next game. We got you.
They did.
And then
Josh started hitting these spike balls like he was crazy. He was like, whoosh. And I'm like, how am I supposed to catch this so fast?
Y'all turned out the monster.
It was
y'all brought
crazy.
out the monster. You want to put stakes on the game? I'm gonna have to show up and show out. You know
We
what I mean?
did.
But then after we win the next game, which the stakes were on, what did y'all do? Oh, best 2 out of 3.
We had to run it back one more time. There was no way I wanted to go out like that. But that last game was the worst one.
Yeah, they
I
were
shoulda
like
left
best
it
2 out
at
of 3,
that.
and then y'all scored 1 point that next game.